welcome to the Window to Dubai. I'm here with Myles and Nick from PH Real Estate. I want to start with your guys' kind of just background that brought you guys together to get into real estate. Kind of tell more of just the background of getting into real estate.
I love the way
you go first.
You dish out to me, so no problems. So both very different backgrounds. I came to Dubai 12 years ago, and I worked for a competitor for the first 12 months. And then after 12, 18 months, actually, I decided that I wanted to set up my own thing. So we started as Powerhouse Properties way back then.
Nice.
And then subsequently, Nick and I teamed up 5 years ago now. 5 years ago. I should know the exact date, shouldn't I? So should you. But, and after that, we rebranded. So obviously, we're now PH Real Estate. We've been PH Real Estate for the last several years. Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, and so when you guys first got started, what was your specialty? Was it the high-end market, releasing rentals, or all of it at once? Like, how did you guys kind of get going?
I mean, Myles' background is traditionally within the higher end, the more boutique, 10, 15, 20 million above. That's kind of where he's worked for a number of years now. And then when we started working together, there were sales and leasing teams, all residential. Sales and leasing teams covering various different communities within Dubai. And it was, I guess, because my background is just pure real estate from the UK and then from here, but more at a median value kind of level. That's kind of where we saw synergies, I guess, where we could like kind of complement. Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. And so what do you think, what's the reason why people come to PH Real Estate? What's the difference maker for you?
In terms of clients or in terms of brokers? Yeah. Look, I think I always try and not think as a broker. I try and put myself in the shoes of if I was a client. So, look, if I was looking to sell my property, why would I use PH Real Estate? Look, number one, our database is massive. We've been around. The number of buyers that we've captured across 10 years, that's a huge number of people. We speak to all of our competitors who have been around for 3, 4, 5 years. Our database is double, treble that. So we've got so many buyers that we can tap into. That's the first thing. The second thing is obviously they are allocated a specialist. We're not one of these agencies where, if Mr. and Mrs. Jones want to sell their house, they don't just get scattergunned around the entire business. They get assigned one area specialist, and that area specialist will stay with them from A to Z until they've got their manager's check in their hand. And look, if I was a seller, that's what I would want. I wouldn't want 10 different people calling me up with 10 different opinions. I'd want one person who I could perhaps build a level of trust with, build a relationship with, maybe even a bit of friendship. And that's how we work from a seller's point of view. From a buyer's point of view, why would somebody choose PH? Go on, Nick. I'll pass that one back to you.
You'd like to think because the level of service that we have, I guess we kind of built a bit of brand reputation around. Coming back to what Myles said with regards to the area specialists. When I got to Dubai a similar time as like Myles about 10, 11 years ago, and back then as a real estate broker, people were kind of expected, or they just fell into the role of covering the whole of the Sheikh Zayed Road corridor from downtown to the marina and everywhere else in between. What we kind of sat down and identified is that's not how you would do it if you came from the London, from the UK London market or any major city in the world. To be honest, you tend to have specialist branches whereby expert knowledge and advice was given to that specific demographic or that specific geographical location. So I'd like to think that over the years, and look, a number of other companies now work on exactly the same basis, whereby our consultants know pretty much everything that they can, and in terms of the areas in which they cover, so that as a buyer you're given expert advice. And in this market, especially at the moment, which it's fair to say has been softening now for the last 3 years or so, it's widely reported, buyers want to know that they're getting the best possible price for the best possible property. It's not just about I want the cheapest, it's value for money.
Yeah. And what about agents? Why do people choose PH over another broker usually?
I think that there's a stack of reasons that we could go through.
You wouldn't want to work with us?
One of them is that we're just very nice people. The second thing, look, again, try and think as a broker, as an employee rather than an employer. In terms of, let's go back to basics, money. You know, our commission structure will take people up to 65% of earnings, where most of our competitors cap out at 50%. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference when you actually look at it across a 12-month period. The second thing is marketing exposure. You know, our marketing spend is massive. You know, I know what our competitors spend. I know what we spend. And the number of leads that we pick up as a brokerage is huge. And I think the third reason that I would come up with is this expression that me and Nick keep going back to, is internal competition. And there are other agencies out there, we won't name any names, who put 15 people in their Dubai Marina team, 15 people in their downtown team, 15 people in their Emirates Hills team. Now, what does that mean? It means that if a lead comes in, a buyer calls in, you've got a 1 in 15 chance of picking that lead up. Our teams are typically a bit more spread out, but there's 3 or 4 people in each team, so there's a much higher possibility that you are going to pick up that client, which I think in turn, if you're good at your job, if you're good at what you do, will mean that you've got a much better chance of making money for yourself. And then when you do make money, the commission structure is higher. There's a few other reasons that Nick might want to go through, but they'd be my top 3 reasons why you'd want to work with PH.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it in real terms, for consultants, they want to know that they're being invested in. They want to know that the company, and that's not just financially, that's in terms of helping develop them as a consultant. And it's ultimately trying to create a fun environment whereby people are successful. And when you get those things together, there's no reason why anybody would, first of all, want to move out of that environment. So it's great in terms of company-wide retention. But it also then becomes an attraction to external sources, external companies, where perhaps if they are successful, they're not happy within that environment for whatever reason that may be. And ultimately, if people are not financially secure in the other companies, well, then they're very rarely enjoying it. So getting those two things together kind of is what we look for.
Staff retention, that's a massive point. That's a huge point. You know, I speak to other real estate company owners, and they've got brokers who have been there for 4, 5, 6 months. We've got guys in the office that have been with us for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, and they're still happy. And I think that will, and hopefully they'll be with us for another 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that's got some kind of relevance to why we're a good agency to work with.
And part of your guys' recruitment is you guys actually bring people from the UK quite often to actually work. What do you think people will leave a city like London and come to Dubai to work?
If you take London just as an isolation, there's an awful lot happening back in the UK at the moment, which is getting huge amounts of press in terms of its exit from Europe. So that in itself, I think, is quite a destabilising factor just in that singular location.
Yeah.
But beyond that, to be honest, I mean, as your backing here shows, I don't see too many skylines like this around the world. I've lived in London and I've lived in Sydney.
And you've lived in Birmingham.
Yes, I'm from.
Don't try and swing that.
It hasn't all been glitz and glamour. No, the first 10 years of my real estate life was in Birmingham. So I think when you couple the lifestyle and then you add into that mix the tax-free income, and what I'd like to think is when we put ourselves out there, when we promote our business, when we run people through quite a rigorous interview process, it's anywhere between 4 and 6 interviews to make sure that, first of all, they are what we're looking for and that they understand what we're looking for. Add all those things together, and I think that is a huge attraction for people from an international platform. We typically look for the UK because that's where we're from, and it's for no other reason than personalities fit. It's a work culture, it's a work ethic, which we've gone to great pains over the last 5 years, if that's what to actually create this work culture. So it's UK typically. It's our staff aren't exclusively from the UK, but that's where 90% would come from.
Yeah, nice. And let's talk about just real estate as a whole here, because I feel like you were saying, it seems like it's been down for a while, but it also feels like it's on the verge of coming back a little bit. It feels like they're trying to make it easier for people to buy homes, get financing. What do you think is it going to be like, the opportunity in real estate as a whole agents, buyers, sellers? What do you think is kind of like the forecast?
We had this conversation only 48 hours ago, and I think we kind of disagree in terms of where it's at. And the beauty about that is everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah.
Nobody knows for sure. And anybody who gives you an airtight answer, they're lying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because none of us have got a crystal ball, and if we did, we'd be billionaires and we wouldn't be on the show right now.
I would hope that you'd still want to be on my show.
We'd still be on your show, but yeah. No one can give you an exact answer. Nobody can give you an exact answer, no matter how much they try. I personally believe that we are pretty much at the bottom of the decline, and we're about to start seeing an upward trend. I think, Nick, you were saying the other day that you still think there's more to go. Two different opinions.
Yeah, I think if you look at it in a macro sense, an overview, there is still an awful lot of negative press around in terms of the oversupply and in terms of the market still having a certain amount of softening to go through. But then you look at it in a micro, in as much as you take individual housing communities, homes. You said that the perfect word. We don't deal in selling properties. We typically rent and sell homes. That's the people. Those are the people who are out in Dubai now, buying and renting. You look at the individual communities, and there is a real sense in a number of these areas that sellers have come down as far as really what either they can or what they're prepared to. And as soon as you then get a certain amount of uniformity in as much as the resistance from sellers to accept the offer which is on the table or to reduce their advertised price any further, you kind of reach a bedrock. And we together in this market alone have seen 3 property cycles. In the last 22 years, I've seen about 8 or 9 property cycles, and as much as the market going up and down, it does in certain specific areas feel as though it's getting to that bedrock.
Yeah.
As UAE as a whole, like Myles said, there's much wiser people than us who still haven't worked out how that's going to work.
And I've heard this, I don't know if this is true, that they're trying to come up with a way to make the cost of down payment to get a mortgage lower now. Have you heard that? Is that actually something that's true, or is it just something that was thrown
There's
out?
a lot of rumour. Dubai is a wonderful place for the rumour mill. Everybody, as you've said, has an opinion. We haven't heard anything official, but like yourself, we hear the rumours, and whether or not those come through to fruition, we'll see.
Because I think there's so many expats that, including myself, that if the cost of a mortgage was slightly lower, it'd be easier to get into the mortgage. Because really, I think Dubai, at least just as an expat renting, you see that the cost of rent is so high. It's a one market where buying really makes sense. Mm-hmm. But the cost to get in is like 25% plus the 7%. You're like 35% in, even on a million dirham loan. It's expensive up front to get the mortgage, and otherwise you're living in a box somewhere. So you have to choose that. So I think it would help. I don't know.
The powers that be, though, they are making it easier nowadays. They're looking at handover payment plans, which is sort of post construction, post handover. Sorry, that is an attraction for a buyer.
And what is that more? Explain it a little bit, because I'm actually personally interested.
So basically, if you're buying something off plan, typically you'd have staged payments, which is linked to construction. I'll give you an example: 10% upon booking. Another 10% when the tower is 20% up, another 10% down when the windows and the glass and the facade is on, etc., etc. So it's linked to construction. What some of the developers are now doing is basically saying, okay, we'll continue to do that, and you can move in, and you can continue paying us 3 or 4 years after you've moved in. So from a cash flow point of view, it's much more attractive to take that kind of payment plan where you're not that exposed. You haven't got to stretch yourself and find 100% of the money up front. You can actually take your time. You can move in, you can bed yourself in, and you can keep paying even after you've moved in.
Yeah.
So I think if I was a buyer in that position, I'd be attracted to that kind of payment plan personally.
Yeah. And what do you think long term? I mean, real estate, obviously with 2020, do you think that's going to have an effect, or you think it will have a minor, or will it be like a significant bump in?
That, to be honest, I genuinely don't know on that. I've been saying for a couple of years now that I think 2020 would be the catalyst that would reignite this place. I've never worked in a real estate market which is as driven by emotional sentiment as what Dubai is. I think medium to long term, and we have this conversation on a daily basis with not only our consultants but also our buyers and sellers. If a buyer's considering getting into the market, you're buying a home, and you're going to get some value out of that. You know, if you were to sit down today and say, right, I intend to give away whatever it might be, 100,000 dirhams of my money. Well, what is that in US? Like 30,000 US, something like that?
27,000, yeah.
So I'm about to give away $27,000 of my money every single year to help pay off someone else's mortgage. You'd probably think that was an even saner decision than actually going in and buying a property, which might come down slightly, but if you were to hold on to it for 5-10 years while you're enjoying it, all of the graphs from any more mature property market around the world would show that it would at least regain those, if not go positively. So depends on why buyers are looking to get into it, to be honest.
Yeah. And so what do you think is kind of the future of just PH? Where's your growth plan? Where are you guys trying to take it? Where you're at now, and where do you want to go long term?
Slowly but surely. You know, I think so many of our competitors make the mistake of just throwing bums on seats, you know, and they just want to have, they want to bring in 10 people at a time, you know, and I speak to some of these guys and you know, half of them last. And I just, in terms of our growth plans, I think we'd rather grow, you know, positive. Obviously we want to grow. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, I think, you know, if any business, if you're not moving forwards and you're moving backwards, aren't you? So of course we do have growth plans, but slowly but surely, getting the right people in at the right times. You know, again, going back to the expression that I used before, internal competition. We don't want to cram our office with as many people as we possibly can. We want to look at other gaps in the business and fill those before we start, you know, going too aggressively. I'll give you a few examples. We have at the moment nobody covering Abu Dhabi. So let's bring in somebody to do Abu Dhabi before we get a fifth person in Dubai Marina. Jumeirah Park, we've got a couple of vacancies in that area. So I think plug the holes first that we've got, and then keep moving forward. We're a team now of, you know, 45, 50 people, which is a very, very respectable number, and we've built a big business. But certainly from my side, I've got no desire to be the largest real estate company in Dubai. Yeah. Quality, not quantity.
Yeah, that makes sense. How can people find PH Real Estate? Where do they find you guys? Instagram, websites?
Right here on your show.
just so if they want to find you, how do they find you?
Instagram, Facebook, you know.
phrealestate.ae is a good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. 24th floor, Marina Plaza. Walk in, come and say hi.
Yeah.
You know, we'd love to hear from them.
So I think it was a great episode. So
Thank you, man.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.